Hey folks, Randy Newberg here, and we are recording another episode of Hunt Talk Radio, Leupold's Hunt Talk Radio, from, well, how far are we from Mexico right now?
3 miles.
3 miles. And if you guys knew that and I say this, I am a fugitive from justice in Mexico, and that's why you will never see an episode filmed, recorded, or anything in Mexico. And that's a story for a different podcast. But anyhow, I am down here doing everything that I can't even explain. We're not going to have enough time in a podcast to explain to you all the things I've been hunting and chasing in the last 6 or 7 days. And with me are two guys who work for Arizona Game and Fish, and they're off the clock here. So we don't want you guys saying anything that's going to cause you to lose your jobs. But I've hunted with them, so I know what kind of good guys they are, and they're fountains of information. And they're going to join us, and we're going to talk about all the things I did and all the things I found out about that now are on my list. So with me is Wade Zarlingo. And Wade and I, when did we first meet? 1984?
84, I think.
So
it was through Jerry Pritchard, through a great friend of both of ours.
Yeah.
You were going to ASU, we were going to DeVry at the time.
Right. Yeah. That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
And also with us is he's making his second appearance on our podcast, for which I'm grateful. It's funny. We run into him out in the hills quail hunting today, and I'm like, Jonathan, what are you doing tonight? He's like, I don't know, why? I said, I want to have you on the podcast. Sure. So how far did you drive to get here?
Well, we're staying in Sonoran, so it's only about a 30-mile drive. So.
Oh, all right. So Jonathan O'Dell, he was in episode 39 when we talked about dove hunting, the history of doves, the science of doves, squirrel cook-offs.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it. We covered a lot of really serious information.
A lot of ground.
Yeah. So anyhow, these guys are with me, and we're going to get into a lot of stuff about hunting in Arizona that I love to do, and I would bet any money most of you are not aware that these opportunities exist. But when we're done with this podcast, you're going to know they exist, and you're going to know how you can take advantage of them. So, but before we get into that, real quickly, as we say, this is Leupold's Hunt Talk Radio, and they are the ones who title sponsor this. They title sponsor my TV show. They just support anything and everything related to the self-guided public land hunter, and great company that makes great products. So we really appreciate them and all they do for us and for our audience, so that we can bring these platforms to you. The other company is Orion Coolers, which right now I have an Orion cooler that is serving as our desk here. It's what the whole podcast gear is spread out. We are doing this. We should almost be filming it, because Jonathan's sitting on an ottoman. Wade is in an office chair that is way too low for use of anything, and I'm sitting on a pelican case because we're at the Holiday Inn Express in Nogales, Arizona, and our desktop is the Orion cooler right now. So I've told you I can find millions of uses for Orion coolers. They also make great luggage. When I fly, I lock them and I put anything of value in there. Go to orioncoolers.com. There's a reason why we use them the way we do and why they're so important to what we do. So orioncoolers.com. And I guarantee you it'll be one of the best coolers you'll ever have, or the best cooler you'll ever have. The other is Onyx Maps. I can't even explain how many different ways I use Onyx Maps, but suffice to say that if you hunt the places I do, as many places as I do, and you hunt areas with a lot of public and private ground, like we were hunting today, Wade, that fence, private.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. It's a good thing your dog didn't
She didn't go across that, did she?
She must have Onyx maps.
It's that respect that she has.
Okay.
For the landowner, the private land that's available there.
It goes all the way from the owner down to its dog.
Absolutely, absolutely.
No, it's like Shiloh is her name. It's like she knew exactly where the property boundary was.
Absolutely. I think she might have the Onyx maps with her.
You think so?
She might be ingrained in her GPS collar.
Anyhow, we use those for everything. They have the chips. If you're an old school guy like me, it's a little micro SD card you put in the back of your GPS. But what I'm coming to learn is that the phone app, the smartphone app, really has a lot of good features to it that I did not know there were that many layers and you could do that many things with a smartphone and an app like the Onyx map. So go to onyxmaps.com and get yourself the app, get yourself the chip, and I guarantee you'll shoot a big elk this year. Ooh. I
guaranteed, huh? I like that.
Matt and Eric and Rob and the crew over at Onyx Maps, they're going to be getting all kinds of phone calls. And then we're going to get into some of this. And this is why the next group that has been sponsoring the podcast, and all of these companies have been with us from the start. They have been here since this podcast started. So that tells you something about the strength of the relationships and my appreciation for the products they make. But GoHunt.com has this service called the Insider. And you've heard me talk about it on other podcasts, but we're going to talk about Arizona and the big game draw system and everything else today on this podcast. We're going to touch on it. So if you want to know a lot about how Arizona works. You want the best draw odds you can get for Arizona. You want to know detailed information about the units, the land composition of public and private, you name it, success rates, trophy quality. Subscribe to their Insider. GoHunt.com, and they have their Insider service. And if you subscribe, use the promo code RANDY, RANDY, and you're going to get a $50 Sportsman's Warehouse gift card. So go to GoHunt.com/insider, and when you sign up, RANDY is your promo code, Randy, and get yourself a $50 Sportsman's Warehouse gift card. So with that out of the way, where do you guys even want to start? You want to start chronologically? You want to start what? I mean, I shot a duck here.
Yeah.
Jonathan looks at me like, yeah, duh. Wade said, now make sure and bring your federal duck stamp and bring all your other stuff. You what did I have? The hip stamp?
The hip stamp or the state migratory bird stamp.
Yeah. And he said, you're going to get a chance to shoot ducks down here. I'm like, what? But I did. I brought it all. And the second morning, I think it was.
Yeah, second morning.
You came over and got me. And
had to come get you. You drove right by him. You were so focused on the Coues whitetail and everything else that was going on. You drove right by him. But
yeah, so then I run into Jonathan this evening, and he breaks out his phone, and you showed me all these duck hunts you've been on.
Oh, yeah.
And crane hunt. I mean, people do not think of Arizona for waterfowl hunting.
No, and it's.
Are you sure you want people to know?
Yeah, I absolutely don't. I mean, people have a tough time coming to Arizona when you come from somewhere else.
Yeah.
I grew up shooting ducks right where you do now.
Right, in Montana.
Yep. And what you said earlier, exactly the same thing. You shoot mallards, and you shoot, there's a few ducks you get to shoot.
Few divers, yeah.
And Arizona's water is very different in how it's spread across the landscape. But, we're the end of the flyway for a lot of species.
Right.
And they all end up down here. So we get this huge mix of birds where you don't just see mallards.
Yeah.
There's mallards and pintails and widgeons and everything else. And I struggle a lot to just try and shoot 7 of the same duck because you never know what's coming next. And you just get excited because there's something new coming. And but we have different waters here. And so, I grew up in Montana, and it was shooting rivers, and it was,
Spring
big
creeks.
waters.
Yeah,
I was shooting big waters. I love decoying. That's the kind of guy I am. And you just have to realize that you have to get a little bit more versatile in your hunting, because we do have a lot of different stuff. A lot of folks here in Arizona love to jump shoot tanks and stuff that are out in the desert, because we are the desert and there's just little water pockets spread all over the place.
Right.
And, but there's small streams, there's big rivers, the Colorado, that's a huge migratory stop. We're kind of the end of the line for a lot of birds down there, and
really
out on the west side. And you hunt in a lot of different methods here. There's small ponds, big lakes, rivers, and of course the one thing that I will tell you that's probably the biggest secret to duck hunting in Arizona. Yeah. Every one of those ducks that you see here in Arizona has been shot at the entire way down the flyway. Okay? And they have seen every duck spread imaginable.
Yeah.
They have literally seen the mallard teal spread in a C hook, a J hook. Like, it's as common as bread coming down. So when they get to me, people laugh at the decoys I have in my garage. But I carry shoveler decoys, cinnamon teal decoys. Yes, they do make those. I have ringnecks. I have to throw the strangest looking spread you've ever seen to be able to shoot ducks, because they've seen everything else. I have to throw them a curveball. And surprisingly, it works. I was shooting a lot of mallards last year over shoveler decoys. The pintails get really wary. The mojo ducks, oh my gosh, they've seen mojos.
The motion duck.
Yeah, the spinning wings, they've seen them, they've seen them all the way down. And so everyone's like, don't use them. Well, yes, you can use them, just use the right ones, or use them in a different manner that everyone else does. So my personal favorite, shovelers and cinnamon teal here in Arizona come directly in like laser beams to the blue wing teal.
Really?
Oh my God. It's some of the funnest time to throw a blue wing teal. So I throw a blue wing teal out over shoveler decoys and just oddball stuff, because and I fly the waterfowl surveys from the air. And it's amazing when you're flying in the air how easy it is to identify decoy spreads. I get to see it from the duck's point of view.
Yeah.
And I look down and I go, oh my gosh, those are fake.
Yeah.
People don't even realize how fake it looks, their own decoy spreads. So, because I've given guys some great advice. I said, only a human would put decoys out every 3 to 4 feet apart.
Right.
Ducks don't do that.
Right.
If there's a common food source, I tell guys, if you have your decoys, have all the weights down, pull it out, tie it in a knot.
Yeah.
So they're all hooked together, and just throw it out there, because ducks love to cluster around food sources.
Right, they do.
And so you're not trying to provide them space to land in. You're trying to look like real ducks. And if you have some jerk cord to get them to throw some ripples and stuff, you get ducks. It's amazing. But so, I have to use a lot of different techniques down here.
So you showed me these pictures. It's the close. Arizona is known for big game hunting.
Yep.
If you were to poll our audience, TV, podcast, forum, they'd all be thinking big game.
Yeah. And more than likely elk and mule deer.
Most likely, yeah. Because that's their greatest opportunity. Desert sheep, good luck with that if you're really lucky.
Sure.
Antelope, almost got to be as lucky to do that as with.
Yeah.
But then you get a guy like me. But I don't want to leave this waterfowl thing, because you showed me a picture that I thought you were big game hunting, and it was a pile of sandhill cranes, you and a bunch of other guys. I'm like, holy crap, I wouldn't want to pack that limit out of there.
Yeah.
What's the deal with the sandhill cranes here?
So Arizona is unique in the fact that there are two very large populations of sandhill cranes. There's the mid-continent, which has a lot of the lesser subspecies, and then the Rocky Mountain population of graders. Okay. Well, here in Arizona, both of those populations overlap in our southeast corner. So people all the time hear about the cranes wintering in Bosque del Apache, New Mexico.
Right.
That's like, a lot of people know that. And they do. There's a lot of sandhill cranes that actually winter there. A lot of snow geese. The thing of Arizona is we don't get the snow geese. But, and we really want to respect the whole idea of Bosque del Apache and all that other stuff. But I will tell you that we generally winter more sandhill cranes
really
in one valley in Arizona than Bosque del Apache does.
Can we say what valley, or is that?
Yeah, Sulphur Springs Valley. Mm-hmm.
Where's that, southeast Arizona?
Southeast Arizona. It's right over, the New Mexico line. It's a big valley, runs basically from Douglas in the south, the border crossing there, Wilcox on I-10, which isn't too far away from the New Mexico line.
Yeah.
Lordsburg and Deming. And we have two very large, we have the Wilcox Playa close to the town of Wilcox, and a big wildlife management area that we have, Whitewater Draw.
Yeah.
And the birds are split between the two. A lot of private land through the middle. They grow a lot of corn, a lot of things that the cranes like.
Yeah.
And we have made the agreement with the Pacific Flyway that we would maintain two wintering roost sites down there. And so, most folks are pretty surprised, especially when you go to our Whitewater Draw facility, just how close you are to the cranes on our viewing area. We have a nice bermed platform you can get out on and stuff and see the cranes. Bring your cameras, bring your binoculars and scopes and stuff. And we had cranes. I was just there 2 days ago. We had probably 13,000 cranes right there on Whitewater Draw. It's about half of them. Most of them were still, the other half were probably out feeding. But we had cranes, 20 yards away that you could see them up close and personal.
You told me there were leftover tags. Tell me how that works.
Well, for Arizona, it's a draw hunt. Our hunts are based on the Rocky Mountain population, the graders,
the big ones.
Yep.
The ones that when they're in Montana out in the grain field, when I drive by in June, the grain is about a foot tall by then.
Yeah.
You'd swear they're white-tailed deer standing out there till they lift their head up.
Just about. So a lot of the Pacific Flyway states, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, everyone that hunts sandhill cranes that has the Rocky Mountain population, we have to kind of be careful because they're a much smaller population than the Mid-Continent. The Mid-Continent is something like 500,000 birds.
Oh, okay.
But so we have a fixed formula that tells us based on the surveys how many cranes overall we can take out of the population.
Right.
And then it's divvied up amongst the states, whether you're a breeding state or a wintering state, and a lot of things. Actually, Arizona was the first state in the Pacific Flyway to start hunting sandhill cranes in 1981. We brought that to the Rocky Mountain population and started that in New Mexico, followed us the year after, and then it's kind of spreading out. Sandhill crane hunting is becoming very popular. You see it on TV a lot more now, and it's spreading east. Kentucky and Tennessee just recently got seasons in the past few years.
And so it's got to be, well, I don't say it's got to be. Is it good eating?
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Really?
Yeah, you've heard ribeye in the sky.
Yep, I've heard that.
Yeah. Oh, they're a real dark, rich red meat, the same way ducks and geese and doves are.
Right.
But don't taste anything like them. Most of their diet for a lot of it is corn, alfalfa. They do eat, they'll go out into the water and eat snails and different things. I mean, I've even seen them eat mice, which is strange. But they're really big bird. But yeah, they taste phenomenal. It's a little bit different in terms of how much meat you get off them because a lot of their legs and their wings are really tendinous because they fly for a long way. We actually have birds who've landed in Arizona from the mid-continent lesser population from Siberia. Wow. They've taken the trip all the way across and made it to Arizona. So it's, they got to fly a long way. But so for us, it is a draw. It's a draw, so we have to monitor that.
Right.
And that draw happens after the fall draw by about a month and a half or so. So the fall draw, usually the deadline for that is June. And the deadline for sandhill cranes is all by itself out there in usually about August.
So I came down and I did all these things. And now see, I thought I'd done all the things that you could do here. And I run into Jonathan tonight, and now it's like I got a whole new list. I got leftover sandhill crane tags available to me. Am I right there?
Yeah, the hunts are already over for the season.
Well, right,
so.
but I'm coming back next year because I have. There's going to be a reckoning with me and a Coues whitetail deer. But that's later in this podcast. Last waterfowl thing. So I shoot my first Arizona duck, and how ironic is it? I'm going to shoot more ducks this season in Arizona than I am in Montana. My son and his girlfriend Lillian and I, when they were home in Montana for Christmas, we went out, and it was a bust. Two greenheads came in, and my son shot them both. I come to Arizona, and I shoot a duck. There's just, I mean, not that one duck is a big thing, but there just seems to be this crazy irony or contrast to that of what people think. Mexican duck. I've heard about them, and this isn't some sort of Donald Trump kind of bigotry, whatever kind of thing. This is a true thing. It's a Mexican duck.
If you look at our waterfowl regulations in Arizona,
right,
they say no more than 2 hen mallards or Mexican-like ducks.
Mexican-like duck. What's that mean?
So
they have of the same general species.
So for most people wouldn't recognize, unless you had them both in your hand, you may kind of overlook the fact that there's a duck that looks like a hen mallard, but has a few different features. They're a little subtle difference. I mean, I remember the first time I shot one, and I was holding my hand, and I had my buddy with me. And, we're like, hen mallard. And just immediately that was your thought. And I kept looking at it, and I was just rolling over. I couldn't believe how rich and beautiful the color was in it. And I just kept looking at it. My buddy's like, dude, you act like you've never seen a hen mallard before. You've been shooting them like for, most of your adult life. Like, what is wrong with you? I said, I don't know. There's just something beautiful about it. It was later on I realized, I'm like, wow, that was a Mexican duck. So, what's really interesting is those guys who greenhead shoot.
Me?
You see them on TV. You see we're only going to shoot the drakes.
Right.
If you tried that in Arizona, you would miss out on an opportunity on a very unique duck. So there are 4 species in the genus of Anis, which is the mallard family.
Okay.
They're all, somewhat related. So you have the mallard.
Right. The greenheads, the orange legs that I hunt.
Yeah. You have the American black duck,
which is mostly an East Coast kind of.
Central East. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You have the mottled duck. The mottled duck is down on the coast. Usually Florida has a lot, and they're hanging out down there. And then you have the Mexican duck. Now, the Mexican duck has a really long, tumultuous history about whether it was recognized or not. The American Ornithologists Union has just there's been this study and it says this, and then there's that study, and they're like, well, no, it doesn't exist. And it's been back and forth for years. We in Arizona, regardless of what the American Ornithologists Union thinks, or even Fish and Wildlife Service, because they'd followed the American ornithologists, they're like, it's whether or not it's recognized as a real thing. And we here do recognize it. And we know recently there was a genetic study done in, I think it was 2011, the paper was released. And because for years, we're talking going back to the 70s, where there's this back and forth on whether it's a real duck or not as a different species. 2011, they did some research on the Mexican ducks along the Rio Grande in New Mexico, did some genetics work, because the American Ornithologists Union believed that Mexican ducks were just kind of hybrids of mallards.
Okay. Because
occasionally you will see the mallard stuff come out. They will crossbreed.
Okay.
And you'll get a Mexican duck that has a little bit of green on it or something, and but they looked at the ducks over on the Rio Grande, and come to find out they're actually more closely related to mottled ducks than they are mallards.
Oh.
So the introgression of some mallard genes really wasn't, a big issue. It was, wow, they're mottled ducks like clear out in Florida, So we've been going back and forth. We're learning a lot more about them as we've gone along. We're hoping to be banding a lot. Actually, we're planning to be banding from the Colorado River between Arizona and California and Presidio, Texas, which is the range, the east-west range of Mexican ducks. Because the only major study, the banding study that's been done was in Arizona back in '78.
Yeah.
But we're going to attempt to band them all across the range and start learning about them. Because one of the major papers, and this was kind of the funny thing, is back in the day we didn't have genetics. We didn't have a lot of the tools we have today.
Right.
And they said, well, based on how it looks, they had these plumage characteristics of the different feathers and stuff and things they exhibited. They came up with this whole scale. It was like a 0 to 36 on a scale, and 36 being an absolute 100% Mexican duck, no hybridization. And they looked at ducks all the way from Arizona clear down to the bottom of Chihuahua.
Mexico.
Yep, down in the bottom of Chihuahua, Mexico, which is the north-south kind of range. And when they did that, even the ducks at the very bottom of Chihuahua didn't score 36.
Wow.
But the ones up north, but there was a definite difference. They looked across and they said the northern ducks are lighter than the ones all the way down the bottom, which are darker. But none of them scored perfect.
Yeah.
And so it was like, well, so how is it that a Mexican duck that truly would have been Mexican, this is a Mexican duck, it's as far south as they possibly exist, how is it they don't even qualify to be a Mexican duck?
Yeah.
That seems absurd.
Right.
And so, and then there's a lot of introgression with mallards and stuff we've seen over the years. But then the genetics came back and said, wow, they're models. But there's a definite decline when you look at that. And so some of Arizona's ducks are a little lighter than the ones you'd see way down in Mexico. But occasionally we'll get some real dark ones because, one of the things we've seen is that maybe some of those ones down south actually migrate north.
Really?
During the migration season. And so, kind of some oddball stuff. But if you're only going to shoot greenheads in Arizona, you're going to miss out on an opportunity.
Well, when I come down next year and we go duck hunting, don't be yelling hen on me when they come in.
Oh, no.
I want to see this Mexican duck thing in action.
Yeah, but once you get 2, that's it.
Oh, that's the limit.
2 for a day. So you got to watch it.
What about mallards?
Well, mallards, you can get 5 greenheads, but it's okay. 2 hen mallards or Mexican-like ducks. So once you reach that 2, if you got a hen and a Mexican.
Is there any way to tell the difference when they're coming in?
I look for the bill straight off because the Mexican ducks have the yellow bill, not the orange bill like hens do. So,
right. Okay.
One of the key characteristics. So.
Huh. Well, my eyes are, I'm getting old, Jonathan. I don't know my eyes are that good anymore. But so with the whole waterfowl tangent behind us, maybe we'll get back to that. I'm sure. What brought me here, and besides Wade, how many years have I told you someday I'm coming down to hunt Coues deer?
It's been a good at least 5 years, probably more than that.
Yeah. And
you were always worried about, well, we can't really film that. They're going to be long shots, right?
Yeah, that was always the concern. You'll never be able to see them. We'll have to put a little highlighted circle on the screen and say, really, there's a deer there. And so Wade assured me, it's like, no, it's really not like that. And if you came down and did the archery over-the-counter thing, which is good for not just Coues deer, and I'm calling them Coues deer. Jonathan's going to give us the history lesson of the name, but I'm going to say Coues deer for right now.
Very common. That's what most people call.
That's what everyone calls.
What most people call.
Don't send me an email and say, no, they're really cows deer or cows deer or whatever. So anyhow, the idea of me coming down here was Wade's like, well, you can hunt any antlered deer with that over-the-counter tag. And I know you're a tightwad CPA, so I bet you've already bought your hunting license. Yeah, I had. So why don't you come down and do that and pick up a javelina tag? Because there's there's almost always leftovers in the unit that you have. And the nice thing about leftover tags, it doesn't affect your bonus points.
Right.
Maybe not with javelina. I mean, how many bonus points do you need for javelina?
Right.
But when you look at the Coues or Coues whitetail, there's leftover tags in some units for those as well. And they don't affect your bonus points.
Which some of your high demand whitetail hunts here take a lot of bonus points for a non-resident.
They do.
So we had all that, and then you promised me that I'd be able to shoot Mearn's quail.
I promised you the opportunity to shoot Mearns. So you have to be able to hit the birds, right?
All right, we'll talk about that before we're done too, because we went out to try fulfill that promise today. But here's the deal coming up, folks. 2017. If you want to come and do what I just did this year, here's what I would suggest. You get, what is your big game? Well, you have two big game deadlines, really. You have your elk antelope one, which I think it's open for application. I know when this podcast goes up, your application period will be open, and the deadline is February 14th.
Right.
And so that's for elk and antelope. And you got to buy the non-resident hunting license to apply. So you've made that investment because you want to come and take part in the amazing elk, antelope. And then in June, you've got your desert bighorn sheep draw and your deer draw. So if you want to apply for those four, or any of those four, or all four of them like I do, you're going to make the investment in a non-resident hunting license. And if you live in the snow world like I do in Montana, I'm a heck of a lot closer to the Canadian border than I am the Mexican border. I mean, anyone who studies geography quickly realizes that in January, you would far rather be where we're at right now. I have not had to wear a coat.
Really? And what were we? We were 70.
In the low
70s, high 60s.
Yeah, every day.
Yeah, beautiful weather.
I get up in the morning, there's no frost on anything. It's like 46 degrees. It is funny, though, to stop at the coffee shop and see everyone bundled up when it's 46 degrees.
Yeah, for sure.
So I look at, okay, I've already made that investment, and I'm going to be, this year for 2017, in the next week or so, I'm going to be doing my applications for elk and antelope. Just like, I don't know, how many non-resident applications you guys get for elk? I'd bet you it's in the tens of thousands.
No, it's the elk and antelope draw is actually one of the largest.
Yeah, I would suspect so.
It's definitely, I think it's pushing over 200,000. In terms of applicants?
Resident and non-resident.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just anecdotally, because so many people watch our elk hunts that we've done in Arizona, it tells me how much demand there is for non-resident elk hunting in Arizona. And you guys do a remarkable job of balancing opportunity with quality. You guys do that with different season types, by weapon types, by rotating this season around to that unit, and the next year it's in a different unit. And there's a reason why there's that much demand for your elk hunting. Oh, and this year, folks, this is why you want to apply this year. If you have a lot of points, and all my buddies who have a lot of points they're going to get a hold of me and say, Newberg, shut your mouth. But here's the deal if you're an elk hunter in 2017. Arizona rolled forward their calendar where season opens, I think, like 5 days later this year for archery elk, which puts it in the absolute peak of the rut. And I'm not going to tell you what the moon cycle is then, but if you go look at a moon cycle calendar, you'll say, I need to be there. This is the year to burn my elk points in Arizona. So you got all these people, snowbirds, who probably are coming down here or could come down here, who have these non-resident licenses. Why are they not doing what I've done in the last week?
I think a lot of people just don't know the opportunities that are out here. I really believe that. I mean, we look at, in the Phoenix metropolitan area, we have a 300,000 person increase in snowbirds.
Just in Phoenix.
Just in the Phoenix.
Not counting
I'm not talking Tucson.
Casa Grande and Tucson.
Quartzite probably grows by double.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's in the middle of the desert nowhere,
Right.
And I think there's a lot of those people that just don't know that the opportunities are there for our dove, our late season dove.
Right.
The waterfowl.
Yeah.
The quail opportunities are there, and all the other small game opportunities that we have too.
Right.
I mean, I think I honestly, but I just don't think they know where to get started.
Yeah.
And I think that the departments is working on that. A lot of different avenues that we're trying to work on as far as bringing those people back into the hunting population.
Right.
Especially our winter visitors. I think there's a lot of opportunity there where they can get out and enjoy why they came here, right? To be outside during the nice, warm January weather.
Yeah, you came here to enjoy the January weather. Get out in it. So before we move too far away from this, though, for the listener, you guys have a unique draw system. You guys kind of wrote the book on a intricate system of bonus points and how you allocate non-resident tags. So I'm going to try my best to explain it. We have a video out there, and we're getting ready to post up another one about how the Arizona draw system works. But here's kind of the gig. So Arizona has two pieces to its draw. It has what they call the bonus pass, and then it has what they call the 1-2 pass. And this is the quirkiness. A lot of states, they only look at your first choice. Some states look at like New Mexico looks at all 3 of your choices. Nevada, all 5 of your choices. Arizona lets you put in 5 choices, but in the first part of it, they only look at the first 2, the first and second choice. And in this bonus pass, you guys kind of have it's almost like a preference point system rather than a bonus point system, because 20% of the tags go into the first drawing. So the people with lots of points they're really the only people in the running for those tags, right? Especially the high demand tags. And so if you don't draw there, you get thrown over into the 1-2 pass, which is a true bonus point. So if you got 6 bonus points and someone has 1, you've got a 6 times better chance of drawing. But doesn't mean you're going to draw. Just means you've got 6 raffle tickets in the bucket, and they've got 1. Is really the best way to look at that. Right. And then from a non-resident standpoint, non-residents can get up to 10% of the tags for any hunt. And then last year, you guys kind of split that baby a little further.
We did. Actually, you might have a different perspective. I think that's a good thing.
Well, anyone who had lots of points is screaming and yelling, saying it was a terrible thing. So, but for all you people with a lot of points who are complaining about this, here, I'm just going to give you Randy Newberg's opinion on it. So they say, they changed the system. All right. Let's say you got 20 points. That means you started in the system in 1996. Well, I started in your system in 1993 or 95. At that point, there was none of this bonus pass where 20% of the tags went to the high point holders. So when you guys threw that in there, that was a huge benefit to me that I never really expected when I started buying Arizona points. That was like a gift from the heavens.
Right.
So when you guys tweak that a little bit, why should I be all mad about it when I'm still better off than when I started this process in 1996, let's say? So here's what we're talking about is in this bonus pass, when I first started, there was no bonus pass. It was just a true draw based on bonus points. Well, I think it was in like 2005 or 6 or 7, 5 or 6. You guys said, we're going to put 20% of the tags to the highest point holders. And I lucked out and I drew an Arizona strip mule deer tag the first year you guys went to that system. I'm like, jackpot. Lucky me. I had no expectation of that when I started into your system. Well, then 2 years ago, or last year was the first year of it, or was it 2 years ago? Last year, I think. You said, okay, we're still going to have that system, but no more than half of the non-resident cap, the 10% cap, can come out of that bonus pass. In other words, that almost preference point types thing. So now all the guys with loads of points who got this extra freebie that they never expected when they started this system started whining and complaining that the end of the world was coming to an end. They still get at least half of the non-resident quota thrown their way. That when they started buying Arizona points, that wasn't how it worked. So they still got that as a bonus, but I guess it's like all things. Once you give something, good luck taking it away, right? And it's not like you took it away. Anyhow, you asked me what I thought of it, Wade.
Absolutely.
So.
And for me, and I'm not an expert on that stuff, even though I'm with the department. I'm not in the big game system or the draw system. But 5% gives those other people that opportunity to draw that tag where they wouldn't have that opportunity.
Exactly.
And that's what people forget.
Right.
You know, you might be there's a little bit of that, but you still have that opportunity to draw in a random draw.
Right. And
where you didn't have that before.
Right. And if you have 20 points, the odds are you got a way better chance of pulling that tag that's over in the random in the bonus point draw.
Absolutely.
Way better than the guy who's got 1 or 2 points. So when I hear people whine about it, and there's guys out on our Hunt Talk forum who you'd swear it's the end of the earth, I almost get ready to delete them from the forum. I'm like, come on. This is, what do they call it, a first world problem?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This is the definition of a first world problem.
Right.
But anyhow, your deadline's coming up. And if people are going to do this, apply by the 14th, and then they're going to have that license in hand so they can come and do all the other things we're going to talk about here. Little, I guess, additional point to this is, since you guys changed that system, there's these services out there that provide drawing odds, and you guys really threw them a curveball. I mean, like, no one's been able to figure it out until this year. And the folks at the Go Hunt system that I was talking about at the beginning have figured out how your system works. And they told me who they hired, and it's some, like, the Charlie Daniels of the abacus kind of statistician, PhD sort of dude who he knows, or they, whatever firm it is, knows how to calculate this stuff. So the only service that really has super accurate draw odds for Arizona is GoHuntcom with their insider service. And so when they posted those up 2 weeks ago, what the 2016 draw odds were, I went and compared them to all the other services that I subscribe to, just because I want to see how things, each place is reporting them. I'm like, whoa, this is way, way different. So people, before you go and use one of these services that uses the little disclaimer, caution, these are just simple odds. Simple in that case means very incorrect. And the odds are you're not going to get the true stats that you want or the probabilities that you want. And that's just the way it is. So if you go to the GoHunt.com, use and subscribe to the drawing odds in the insider, use promo code Randy and you're going to get it. So that gets us to what I've been doing every morning for the last 6 days. I have been hiking the hills here with bow in hand. I cannot believe how many whitetail deer I have seen. I told you, Wade, when we came down here, I thought if I saw 4 or 5 a day, I'd really thought I had a banner day. I've been seeing 70, 80, 100 deer a day.
I've been seeing a lot of deer out there.
It's
Absolutely
unbelievable how many deer we've been seeing. And if I could do it over again, I'd come later in January.
Later, right?
Because the rut is just starting to pick up a little bit. But this tag I have, it's the over-the-counter, what do you guys call it, a non-permit?
Non-permit tag. You don't have to apply through the system to
right.
draw it.
I went to Walmart and got mine.
Absolutely.
And all I had to do is show them my hunting license. And they're like, oh, yeah, go archery hunting. And it's good for mule deer or whitetails.
Yes.
But aren't some of these mule deer hunts, I think some of them open in December for this non-permit tag? Some of your northern hunts up like, I'm gonna get this wrong. So go to the regulations, folks.
Yeah, absolutely go to the regulations. Look at this stuff.
Which units they are, but quite a few of the units up, I mean, obviously not Kaibab, obviously not the Strip, not any of your limited entry units. But a lot of them that have tons of mule deer and some nice mule deer are open for this tag. And then down here, I'm just, why was I under the false premise that I wasn't going to see many deer? I'm trying to figure that out.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of deer. I think I've told you that over the years.
Maybe I just didn't trust you. I don't know. I got within 34 yards of one buck.
Right.
But I'm not allowed to shoot them in their bed for TV. It's against the production guidelines. So that was... Yeah, we won't go there. Jonathan's giving the look like, well, you dumb moron. Why do you even produce TV if you got to deal with that kind of stuff? And then I got close to another one that when people see this is like amateur hour of, I am so embarrassed. I got within 28 yards. And how tall is the grass up there? What, 3 feet? 4 feet?
It's tall this year for sure. Probably 3 feet. I mean, 3 feet is a...
And suffice to say that when a Coues deer beds down, their head doesn't stick up 3 feet. Right. I'd say it sticks up about 2 feet. So when you're stalking down the hill in this really thick grass and you know the deer is there, don't give up on it. I got within 28 yards of where these deer were bedded in the grass and I couldn't see them. So I start talking at full volume to the camera. Well, I guess they must have got out of here. And as I'm doing that, the camera guy gets these big-eyed look on his face. Like, the deer stand up and run off right over my shoulder. Right exactly where they knew they were. We knew they were. So, oh well. That's my problem. You guys ever sit water? Like
I can't do it.
I can't either. Do you do it, Jonathan?
Sometimes.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
How do you mentally get through that?
Well, so this is the thing. I mean, the big game hunters have always been like, I don't know about small game hunting. They're like, I want to go sit by water. And I said, I do too. It's duck hunting. And so I pretend it's like a duck hunt. And so I'll go sit next to the water and be like, okay, maybe there's a duck that'll come by. I don't know. But
because everyone told me you are never going to kill one of these unless you sit over water.
And that's, a bow. Well, and so I'm sure, Wade talked about, I don't know if you want to, about the doubling down on deer.
The doubling down on deer.
Right.
All right.
So with Arizona deer, if you've applied. Right. For Arizona.
Yeah.
Got your license.
Yep, I do.
We have the August-September archery season.
Yep, exactly.
Which is over the counter.
Yep.
So you purchase your over-the-counter license.
Mm-hmm.
You can hunt August and September.
Right.
In a number of units.
Yep.
Very early. Then again, you can come back in December.
Right.
And if you get a deer then, we could shoot a deer December 31st.
Come back and shoot another one
and go back down to Walmart and buy the next license because you can shoot one January 1st because we allow one deer per calendar year. So the best thing to do is if you've done that, because the draw hasn't even occurred yet, if you get him in January, you can still apply, put in for bonus points because the archery over the counter doesn't affect your points.
Oh.
And so now this year we don't put in to actually go hunting. We just put in for bonus.
Right.
And so if you put in for Arizona deer, you didn't get drawn.
Yeah.
And sometimes even if you did, but if you didn't get drawn, you can still come and over-the-counter archery hunt and still get a deer in Arizona, and it doesn't affect your points.
Right.
And so the guys who are shooting in January, they get a deer, they're like, okay, cool, I'm still going to keep my points. Let me put in for bonus point only in the fall.
Huh. How's that, huh? There's a trick.
So that's some serious opportunity right there.
Well, I don't know. I'm pretty sure you could kill one of these things over water a lot easier than me and a camera guy stumbling up and down.
August, September is when it's really still warm, and they're really tuned into water at that point.
Yeah.
That seems to be a little bit easier. This time of year when it's so cool, and we've been getting hammered with rain.
Right.
It's been, as Wade and I are more than excited because it's raining quail. It's the way we talk about it. All this winter rain means quail. So, but yeah, I mean, there's water kind of everywhere. It's cooler temperatures. They're not locked down to water, and so you got to kind of change your strategy at that point. So,
Well, the other thing everyone told me that, I wouldn't go do that. You're going to run into all kinds of drug trafficking and illegal immigration and blah, blah, blah. I haven't seen any.
We saw a lot more law enforcement, border patrol than we saw illegals, right? I mean, hundreds of times.
I had no idea that many people work for Customs/Border Patrol. But no, it's not. It's just been absolutely pleasurable in terms of the weather. In terms of the number of deer. You can just, and this is kind of a weird contradiction. I have the patience to sit behind optics for hours on end, but I can't sit for a half hour in a blind over a water hole. I mean, when you think about that, that makes no sense, Randy. But I sat behind those optics every morning, me and you some mornings, and Jerry and the camera guys, and we just, they are hard to see. I mean, they blend in.
Well, it's like anything else when you're glassing, though. You catch them in that sun and they just light up.
Right.
They just glow.
Right.
And whitetail are no different than these little cows. Whitetail are no different than elk. When they hit that sun, they shine.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of having your glass at the right spot, right?
At the right time. Yeah. And so let's get into this, Jonathan. Before we turn this on, you were telling me the story of they're not Coues deer.
Right.
They are not Coues deer.
Coues deer.
They are what?
It's the correct French pronunciation of his last name is Coues, like house.
Coues deer.
Coues.
There you
so
have
you'll
it,
hear a lot of
folks.
people come back and go, "Oh, they're cows." No, that's not it either. That's not how you pronounce it. One actually, a member of our department actually met the grandson of Eliot Cows and asked him, "How do you pronounce your name?" We really want to know because of the deer.
Right.
And so it was Cows. So. But and Wade and I don't get hung up on it either. It's Coues.
Right.
That's the most common thing you'll hear. But yeah, everyone tries to kind of go back and forth about it. And some people don't like when they're like cows. Yeah. Like, because I can't call a deer a heifer.
Right.
They don't like that kind of pronunciation. So generally we accept it in any form.
Yeah.
We know what deer you're talking about, because according to Boone and Crockett, this is the only, really recognized subspecies of whitetail.
Right.
Regardless of all the other sites you see. Right. There's this whitetail in the Illinois, whitetail in the Ohio, and you kind of go around and you go, according to Boone and Crockett, this is the only officially recognized. It's kind of like the same thing with the mule deer, where you have, your mule deer and your blacktail. Yeah. It's those officially kind of recognized. Yeah. We've always known, that these were, really special deer. Because what I always like to say, because of the much smaller stature, is the best part about shooting a Coues deer is, as soon as you shoot it, you just pick it up, put it in your pocket, and go home. So,
well, I didn't get the chance to put one in my pocket and go home. I didn't get the chance to put one on my pack and go home. But the benefit of that is, Wade, how many years have we been conspiring that we're going to go and hunt the kaibab for mule deer? Now, if I would have arrowed a buck this year, Jonathan just explained you're only allowed one deer per calendar year. Right. So we would have had to done points this fall.
Again, points.
So when the June draw comes along,
we should be right there.
We'll be right there. You and I both have a gunny sack full of points.
We do.
So we'll be hunting the kaibab. We don't have enough for the late hunt, but that's all right. And we can apply as a resident and a non-resident. Right. It's just subject. If I get thrown out because the non-resident quota is filled, you get thrown out also.
Right.
So there is an upside about me messing up some of these stocks that we do get to burn our Arizona deer points this year. So further history lesson. Jonathan is like the walking history of at least this part of the country's conservation story. Eliot Cows, connect that to Mearns, for which the Mearns quail is named.
So Eliot Cows, or Coues, as I'll call him, he had an original paper when he came to Arizona.
Original what?
It was a scientific paper that he'd written.
Okay.
Called The Quadrupeds of Arizona.
Like four-legged?
The four-leggers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he wrote a fantastic paper called The Quadrupeds of Arizona. And he was the first one to physically describe the Coues deer. Mm-hmm. But he's, biologists, there are some, but for the most part, we're not so egocentric that we have to name it after ourselves.
Okay.
You've heard of
politicians, they want to name everything after themselves, but not biologist type.
You've heard Douglas fir tree or Merriam's turkey,
right,
or those kinds of things. They didn't name them after themselves. Other people named them in recognition of them. So Eliot writes his paper, Quadrupeds of Arizona, and describes this very early deer. It wasn't too long after, probably about 2 decades after his paper had come out. A surgeon who was a officer in the United States Cavalry was assigned to Fort Huachuca.
So far southeast Arizona.
Far southeast Arizona. He worked with the cavalry still when we were having the Apache Wars, and came out. But he was a tremendous naturalist as well. And so there was two big forts in Arizona. One was Fort Huachuca, which is still there to this day, and Fort Whipple, which was right outside of what is now Prescott, and it's all gone now.
Okay.
So Edgar Moran, he was an admirer of Eliot Cows, and so when he came out here, he did an entire survey of the Mexican boundary states. He rode from Fort Whipple all the way to Deming, New Mexico, and back, and wrote down every single species that he ran across. Some he had to describe because they didn't have a name at the time or weren't well known. Others were, and he would reference this, and he called it the Coues deer.
Based on that,
his respective Eliot Cows, because he knew of Eliot Cows' paper about this strange little deer.
Okay.
And so with his respect, he really went out of his way to make sure that this was Eliot's deer.
Okay.
So that's how the Coues deer got its name.
Right. Even though we don't pronounce it correctly.
Even though we don't pronounce it correctly today. So I mean, he was a little bit of a contemporary. He was younger than Eliot was, but he knew he was coming to Arizona, and so any of the scientific community at the time were pretty well linked, to each other.
Yeah,
they knew each other, either in scientific works or whatnot. So
how did it become the Mearns quail then?
So, and that's the whole other story, because only Arizonans typically call it Mearns quail.
What do you mean? Hold on. Why?
So those who hunt in Arizona or are from Arizona call it the Mearns quail.
Right.
Textbooks, science books, other hunting books, that have been written over the years, generally today call it the Montezuma quail.
The Montezuma quail.
Montezuma quail.
Like after, what is he, Aztec or Incan chief?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
remember
but this bird actually has more common names than any of the other quail. It's been known as Messina quail, fool's quail, harlequin quail, clown quail.
I mean, do they have a range that expands east and south, or
no? So there's a small population in West Texas.
Okay.
They kind of are broken apart across New Mexico as it comes in, and Arizona has the greatest abundance in the United States, has the greatest abundance of habitat, and therefore greatest abundance of birds.
Right.
And then they also travel into North Mexico.
Right.
Because they're a sub-neotropical bird, as far as, because they're not the same shape as most other quail species and stuff. So, but in Arizona, that's our thing. Is we've always called them Mearn's quail, and a lot of that comes from the biologist's great respect for Edgar Moran's because of his Mexican boundary survey.
Okay.
And in that, talking about that bird.
So did he just identified it and said this bird doesn't have a name, but here's what it looks like?
Yeah, so he would go through, and so I always say that, the many names of the quail have to do with certain aspects. It's a fool for its behavior. It's a
hold on. No, I'm not buying that. They fooled me. They schooled me. They humbled me today.
Yep.
Anyone who calls that a fool quail is a fool.
Well, then you're calling Jack O'Connor a fool.
Well, with all due respect to the long since departed Jack O'Connor,
Sure.
he must have found some that had got drugged up or something.
No, what's really fascinating about, and that's why he would call him, I mean, the name fool was really a behavioral thing. And it wasn't till, a little bit after, when we've been hunting them quite a while, that we kind of understood why they would behave the way they do. Their only predator ever came from the sky.
Right.
Hawks.
Right.
Because we weren't hunting. I mean, they were kind of maybe intermittently ran into prior to 1960, but we didn't have a season on Mearn's quail.
Oh, really?
Until 1960. The history of Mearn's quail, there's people who are alive who were still on the first hunt. And that's an absolutely phenomenal story.
Wow. Yeah.
Which I could tell you, because who knows how we started to learn how to hunt rough grouse, or how we learned how to hunt chucker, or
Right.
a lot of these things are lost, but the people who were here and did it and what taught us how to hunt them are still alive. So it's kind of a very interesting story. But when you look at that idea that their predators only came from the air, they know there's predators, and so the first thing they do is they turtle.
Yeah.
They lay down, they tuck their head, and they wait, because they're very cryptic.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen them.
Yeah.
Or actually not seen them until they actually flush. Because when they're on the ground, they're right in front of you. You're almost stepping on them, and they're not there.
I stepped over one today, and the dog came along behind me, and I had walked over where this bird was. The camera guy walked over where this bird was, and I see the dog sniffing. I'm like, well, it can't be there. We just stepped there. Wrong. What do you call it? Turtled? That bird was turtled in like. I'm at a loss for how I could have lifted my foot over a bird I was chasing.
And how far away were you from that bird when it went up?
5 feet, maybe.
And it got away.
It got away. It got away.
It's
just about took my hat off.
You're so surprised. You're so surprised by these birds when they come up.
So the fool then.
So they learn to hold really, really tight. If you can't see me, I don't get eaten.
Right. And you can't see them in that cover.
And especially as brightly colored as the bird is, particularly the male. But if you look at those birds, look at their backs.
Right.
That's where the least amount of colored feathers are. But it's got this beautiful pattern on these feathers. Fly tiers love them.
Yeah.
Love those feathers to tie wet flies.
Yeah.
But it really blends them in to the environment that they're in. I mean, you can't see them in grass. It's just, it's hard.
Yep.
And so they learn to do that with dogs. And so Jack would ride around on a horse, and these quail would come out into the pathway, and, the horse was coming, and they're like, oh no, there's danger. And they would lay down and sit in open grass where he could see them.
Right.
And he's like, well, you stupid fool. It's just, you're acting foolish. Why would you do that? Hide in plain sight.
Yeah.
But they could.
Right.
And so everyone was like, oh, they're just foolish for their behavior. So they started calling them fool's quail.
Huh. Well, I'm not buying it. Jack could call him whatever he wanted, but, oh, gosh. It was a ton of fun to go do that today. And throughout the week, so a little side note to this, is my buddy Jerry Pritchard came out, and my uncle Larry Stickler came down from Scottsdale. And Wade, you took them Mearns hunting
2 days.
2 afternoons.
Right, 2 afternoons.
And you guys stacked them up.
We did really well.
And then you brought me this afternoon. And I don't know.
In the same area. Something was different.
Well, part of that is because you guys had hauled a couple gunny sacks of them out of there earlier in the week. But the quality of what they tasted. We grilled them last night.
Oh, they were really good.
I was like, why have I not been Mearns quail? I've shot Gamble's quail. I've shot scaled quail. I've never shot a Mearns quail until today. Until today, I got one. And the first, Jonathan, you should have seen it. The dog made this beautiful point, and Wade's like, get up here, she's ready. And he lets the dog in there, and it's like a dozen fireworks taking off. I call them UFOs, not unidentified flying objects, flushing objects, because they go so fast that I don't know how something can go that far, that fast. You think they would pass out from the G-forces that it has to create. But, I mean, that thing, it's like it got hit by lightning. It just, boom, crashed. And I'm like, I'm 1 for 1. I'm kind of chucking and jiving and dancing out there. Yeah, there ain't nothing in this Mearns quail stuff. Well, that was the last one I hit. and the last one.
Oh.
That was pitiful, Wade.
That was very tough to watch the dog make that point like that in wide open country. The bird flying straight away. I think you shot twice because you're shooting an over and under a pointer, right?
Yep.
And then I'm shooting a pump, and I shot 3 times at it. Fly straight away.
Straight away.
And it's on camera, so we can't lie about it, right?
But I've concluded on the walk out, we walked like, I don't know, 33 miles or something this afternoon. A lot. But here's what happened, Jonathan. My ammo, when it leaves my barrel, is only going at 1,200 feet per second. It couldn't catch up with it when it flew straight away.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. So at least that happened to you. Yeah. Because
you guys were out Mearns hunting.
So we were Mearns quail hunting as well. Yeah. So we had big groups and stuff. Well, what'll happen is that, you got the one big fat bird.
Yeah.
That flies straight away and open cut. Like, it's just a beautiful thing. And you guys, like, you're shooting, you miss it, you're like, how did that happen? Right. Well, so we have the flip side of that. We got a few guys, like dogs on point, birds comes up, and that big fat one lights up, and you got an entire covey. Right. There was probably 8 or 10 in the sky, except that one big fat one who's flying straight away in open country, and everybody shoots that one and hits it and turns it into a bag of jelly. You're like, well, this one's going to be a little hard to eat. Like, couldn't we have just picked all different birds? No, we all have to go for that one, Because that one, I mean, that's the thing, is that one is probably definitely, like the big rooster. Yeah. Or something like, so you're like going, oh my gosh, it's perfect. Because you can identify them, once you're doing Mearns quail hunting long enough, you can identify on the flush which ones are which. Yeah. So you're like, oh, there's the roosters. Right. Because we work on trying to do that. Like, we're just trying to all shoot the roosters and stuff. So
you guys are better than I am.
Yeah. Well, and that's, because we want, let's leave all the hens on the ground. But Mearns quail have a unique feature in terms of when they nest. They do produce more males than females always. Really? Yeah. It's a survival strategy. It's a life strategy.
Right. Sure.
And so guys really like that because they shoot a bunch of roosters. If they have no experience, no training whatsoever, odds are pretty good. It's in their favor that they're going to get some roosters. Right. And so they have that great, that great tailgate shot. So.
Well,
I think I pulled that line on you today, didn't I?
You did. You laid a heavy-duty guilt trip on me.
Yeah, I shot only the males. I was just waiting for the males. So.
Yeah, he's a game hog. He's like, he says, no, when the dog gets ready, I'm going to send her up there, and you just got to find these shooting lanes.
Sure.
Well, he puts me off to the side, and he walks right up behind the dog. And it's not like the quail fly straight off to the side because they're in there such thick brush. They go straight away to start with, and then they start doing this dive bombing stuff. He puts me over to the side. And I got to try swing on these things. I only shot 4 times. So 1 out of 4.
Not bad. That's good shooting.
Not bad.
No, not at all.
I'm pretty proud of that. But I bet you if I had to shoot another 3 or 4 times, I would have been 1 out of 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Probably. But
it's not too bad. I mean, that's like I said, remember we talked about this. 1 in 5 shells to shoot a dove. That's the average.
Oh, I whooped that in Yuma when we were over there. But you guys said I was.
You're high grading.
Yeah, I was being too particular. My shots, anything past 20 yards, I wouldn't shoot.
Sure.
So, but no, that was a ton of fun. In the country they live in,
beautiful.
When people see this episode, they're not going to believe there are such huge rolling grasslands and oak canyons and other stuff in Arizona. It does not look like Arizona.
And we've always talked about that. You know, the first time you come for Mearn's quail, because it really of all the quail species in the United States, this is the trophy bird.
Is it?
This is
because of their rarity and how hard they are to find?
They're the perfect bird dog bird. Mm-hmm. Because you've seen how tight they hold. And it's fantastic when you have a dog that knows how to work Mearn's quail. Because you don't want the big wide ranger, just covering every inch of ground. Like you want the dog who's working a little close has it's a really acute nose that works it. And Wade's dog is a lot of the guys who run the Mearn's dogs, man. When you're behind a really good dog. And they're the trophy birds. So the very first time you come, it's for the birds because you see them and you're like, I got to go get those. And you're going to come back every other time for the country.
Yeah.
You literally are. It's just the country is so amazing. You're like, I don't even care if I shoot birds.
Yeah.
I just like watching the dog run around, maybe flush a few, and just be out here in this 60, 70 degree weather in beautiful oak savanna grasslands, and hillsides and stuff. You're like, this is just tremendous.
And people come from everywhere. We ran into people from New Jersey.
Right.
He has killed every other quail species except for the Mearn's quail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he said he was here for a month if that's what it took.
That's what it took.
Yeah.
Crazy. But Arizona isn't just Mearn's quail.
No.
Oh, no.
I've shot a lot. Is it gamble or gambles?
Gambles.
With an F. I'm going to fess up right now that when I see a gambles quail on the ground, I poleaxe them. I have zero. The way that those things run and go through the cactus and drag you up and down, I have no sympathy for them. And they are really good eating. So, folks, just in the sake of full disclosure and honesty, I will shoot them on the ground. You couldn't do that with the Mearns because you can't see them.
Not very often. If you did, they're close enough that you wouldn't have much left to
eat. You could squish them with your foot.
Right.
But, so what some years you'll have great Mearns populations, some years great gambles.
We've had some
differences in precipitation and habitats and
most of it's tied to precipitation patterns. And Mearns we've had probably since 2013, Jonathan. Last 3 years have been pretty dang good. Pretty high harvest rates on Mearn's quail. Mm-hmm. Gamble's quail and scale quails numbers have been down significantly, and so Mearn's quail, they rely on the summer moisture, the monsoon moisture, and you have to have fairly mild winters. They don't tolerate freeze as much as say a Gamble's quail.
Okay.
And then our Gamble's quail, they have their precipitation pattern they rely on are those winter months. December, January, February. February is kind of the key. Those 3 months are really the key.
For moisture?
For moisture,
okay.
Yeah. And then scale quail, there's a little bit of debate about that. But they tend to, what we've seen in the research stuff is they'll take advantage of both.
Okay.
But that's not hasn't been real defined. I mean, Jonathan's the one that keys in on this research stuff. He really understands a lot of what goes on with these birds, and I don't know if you got a scientific, photographic memory this man has. But.
Yes, photogenic. It's not quite photographic, but so scaled quail on the whole, breeding wise, are exactly 6 weeks behind Gamble's.
Okay.
Arizona has a unique weather phenomenon, where it's called bimodal. Bimodal weather pattern, meaning we have winter precip, we go into the spring, and it is the driest part of our entire year when you go into spring. April, May, June. The April showers bring May flowers ain't happening in Arizona.
Right, okay.
Right? And then we come into July, and it starts the monsoons.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of rain, and then the fall gets a little bit. It's not as dry as the spring. So the scaled quail who are here are kind of in a bind between winter and summer, because they're behind Gamble's just by about 6 weeks, and it puts them right in the springtime when it's real dry.
Okay.
And so sometimes scaled quail will go early in terms of their breeding if we've had a really robust winter and it's extended a little while, things are in good condition. They're like, okay, let's put down a nest. Everything's good. And sometimes it's like not quite the full winter we had, so we're just going to hang out and wait and see what happens, and then the summer monsoons come, and then they can kind of respond to that.
Huh.
So,
wow.
And some do, and this year, a lot of the more recent years, because of how strange the weather has been, we've had like part of them go in the winter, part of them go in the summer, and you're like going, what are you guys doing? Like, you can't figure it out, because you'll find chicks. We've had mixed coveys where you have an adult and you have like these really old chicks and you have these really like bumblebees, and you're like, what happened here? Like,
And we had with our gambles this year. Our precipitation patterns were really spotty and kind of spread out. And so we saw a lot of just spread out hatches. We had birds that we checked at a check station that were born in September. Which is not common, but that's just how they tried to key. They're trying to make it work.
Right.
And they don't have very high success. They don't have that concentration of winter precipitation. They'll still reproduce. They'll still have birds, but they're scattered, and it's just not as successful.
But we saw our first chicks this year as well for Gamble's. Almost, it was the end of March, like March 25th, our first clutches were hatching.
Huh.
And so there's really elongated hatch period. And so it's, and it tends to happen. That's kind of a typical bird thing anyway. It's not like the elk where they all drop within a couple hours of each other, pronghorn, it's like they don't sync up that well.
Yeah.
And so you get that peak of the hatch sometimes is very abrupt and sharp, and like boom, they all hit the ground. Or these ones kind of get stretched out and it rounds out the top, and you get early, and it really rises in the middle. You do see a lot more, and then it tapers off after that. But
people do have a short memory as far as our Mearns population, especially our Mearns, because it's such a localized bird.
Well, the Arizona Game and Fish logo is a Gamble's quail. A little curly Q on its head.
Absolutely.
Why is that?
It's such an adaptive.
Someone made that decision, and
it's an adaptive.
40 years ago.
It's an iconic of what our desert bird quail species is. It's the Gamble's quail.
Yeah.
And we take it.
Gamble's to Mearns and scaled is some huge ratio.
The Gamble's is vastly the most hunted in Arizona. It's the number one species. Okay. But I can tell you it's on the logo because it's cool. Because we've changed the logo over the years, but it's always been centered around the quail.
Yeah. They are beautiful.
They are. And we take them for granted because we see them a lot, right? They're very centered to where we're at, where we live in Arizona. Yeah. And so we do take them for granted.
They're so beautiful.
And they are a beautiful
it's
bird.
Like this purplish blue with these white patches and these brown and black patches, and when you hold, it's like every bird, you hold it in the sun, it's got every possible color you could think of.
Yeah. And and the nice thing about Gamble's, you don't have to have a dog. You can get them without, and that's kind of what separates the Mearns from the other birds, right? it's kind of a specialized deal. You just can't hardly do it without a dog. But Gambel's, anybody can hunt a Gambel's quail,
Right.
You know, because they're accessible to the foot hunter.
I was in college without a dog, and I had a 28-inch long tom full choke barrel on my 12 gauge that I brought from Minnesota when I used to shoot rough grouse on the stump.
Right,
And even I shot Gamble quail. A starving college student could go outside of Phoenix and they're good eating.
And they're fun. And when you get in, when the populations are up, they are a fun bird to hunt. And I wouldn't shoot them on the ground if I have a dog, but I'll shoot them on the ground if I don't have a dog.
Okay. And the way they call. I mean, I remember the first time it was you or Jerry had this little put it in your mouth little slat of wood.
Right.
And you blew on that thing, made some noise. I'm like, what is that? Is it Gamble's quail call?
Yes, absolutely.
And those things will respond to that. When you scatter the flock or the covey,
right,
they start. I can't even make the sound. It sounds like it. You'll know it,
right? And it's really good if you're up early in the morning, because that's when they tend to call the most, is when they're coming off their roost or when they're going onto the roost in the evening, and then when they're split up. But those are the times you can locate birds. If you get out early enough, you can catch them coming off the roost, and they're making a lot more noise when they come off the roost. So
I've never had a quail that wasn't delicious.
Probably never will.
The quail you get in restaurants, what are those? Some sort of
Farm-raised bobwhites.
Is that what they are?
Yep.
Okay. I didn't know if they're some sort of guinea hen or what they were. I don't ever order. I never order wild game on a menu.
Yep.
It just is like, it's not wild game if it's on a menu. It's illegal in this country to sell wild game. But anyhow, between doves and quail, that 2 years I went to college here, I
ate a lot of them. Huh?
Oh man, I'm not sure what I would have done if it was not for the bounty of the landscape and what I was able to shoot. And the funny part is, so that was in 1984 and 85. All that opportunity is still here today.
It is. And accessible, right?
Yeah, it is. Accessible. So now I'm going to get to another part. We had Al Iden come and join us, and he's your access landowner habitat. He wears a lot of hats.
He does wear a lot of hats.
And people always email us and say, Randy, where were you hunting? And out of respect to other people who hunt in that unit or whatever, we never tell them what unit we're hunting in. Well, we're interviewing Al, and he gives the website of where people can find all these places we've been hunting. Like when we went and did the dove hunt down in Yuma, that I call it VPA. I'm sure
it is VPA, Voluntary Public Access Program.
And he gave us the website, and now I can't remember what it is. It's like Arizona
Recreational Access
Map.
Arizona Recreation Access.
Something.com. Anyhow, we'll put it in the podcast description or something. But so it tells where all these properties are for all 4.5 million acres of it.
Right.
That's a lot of ground that you guys have opened up to hunting. 4.5 million acres. That's not like.
And that's on top of the 60% of the state that's
BLM,
public
Forest Service,
right? And some of that 4.5 million is access routes into those public lands. It wouldn't have been
if the landowner didn't open that up.
Right,
you wouldn't get to that public land.
And that's a farm bill program.
Right, that helps fund that.
Right,
and he went into great detail of how it is, and it's. For me, it's amazing because 2 years ago we filmed Jerry. We people are like, "Where were you at?" I'm not going to tell you what unit, but we were hunting in this. I think that ranch is what, 40,000 acres.
40,000 acres of checkerboard, private and state
land, and through this access program, it's all open to hunting.
It's all open
if you draw that.
And the beautiful thing about that ranch we're on, that's a lot of those access dollars the rancher chose to put those onto the ground for habitat projects.
Water.
So the department would go out and we'd secure access through funding, which with your application fee when you buy a license through Arizona, $1 of that goes to access.
Just $1?
$1 for the three out of the three for the application fee.
Oh, I got you.
Right.
Not the license fee.
No, just the application fee.
Gotcha.
And I forget where I was going with that, but
well, the habitat
part, and that's a huge part of what it is, because we build these relationships with the landowner, and they open up these access, for a fee, and then they take the money that we pay them for access, and they'll put it onto the ground for habitat. And those are the partnerships and the relationships that we build, and a lot of that is built on the relationships or the interaction those landowners have had with hunters in the field. Mm-hmm. And if they run into respectful, ethical hunters, they're more apt to allow that access or work with the game and fish to build access and habitat to support more of what we enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And it's a great program, and it's one of those things that's coming up in the future that hopefully gets a lot of attention and hopefully gets a lot of support from the people that listen to your show and support that farm bill action. I think we've got 2 years.
2 years left outside.
And it's one of those things that it does so much good, and it needs to be supported, and I hope that message resonates. We got 2 years to get it out there and let people know how important that program is.
Yeah, and it's I always feel like, why am I telling people about this? Because now they're going to see, oh, that isn't a unit that has a difficult access issue. I think I'll apply there. But I apologize that I can't remember it's AZ or ArizonaAccessMap.com or something like that. I'll put it in I'll get it on the podcast description. He gave it to us, and it was only 2 days ago. I already spaced it out.
Recreation AZ or AZ Recreation. Yeah, you think I would know that, right?
Well, it just.
But I tend to know most of the places that are open, right? I don't need to key on that as much as other people.
You don't need to go to the website,
right?
But the point of all that being is that for the non-resident, there's two big concerns they have. Can I get a tag? And if I can get a tag, do I have a place to hunt? Well, you guys have so much public land in Arizona that having a place to hunt isn't that big of a deal. But there are some units, there are some species, there are some other things that this 4.5 million acres is critical to that opportunity. Just like when we were dove hunting, right? Yeah. I mean, gosh.
Well, and the other thing that's is in southern Arizona, which is, and it's all something we're always going to struggle with just because of the pattern of land ownership in Arizona. Right. I mean, in southern Arizona, we have these sky islands,
right?
And the sky island, public land, but most of the ownership pattern around that is private land,
right?
And so there has been some tendencies to lock those up, and what that does is it really separates the public from the public land,
right?
And that's the key example of what these access programs are really targeting.
Right. When you say sky islands, you mean these isolated mountain ranges that are very high, wonderful habitat, huge diversity.
Absolutely.
That are mostly public land.
Yep, mostly public land. So.
Well, I hope that program continues, and if spilling the beans and telling everybody to go there and look at it lessens my chance of drawing a tag, you know what? I'm good with that.
There's lots of room out here.
There is.
There's lots of room.
I did not see another archery hunter.
You did? No, we didn't, did we?
In 6 days of hunting Coues deer.
We did see the javelina hunters.
We saw the javelina hunters.
But they were not chasing the Coues deer.
So I bought this. This is going to be, this is almost like confession now. Have you hunted javelina, Jonathan?
Oh, yeah. Shot my first trophy javelina last year.
Okay. Well, I've always been of the impression, everyone tells me, oh, they're just a bunch of stupid stink pigs, blah, blah, blah. They can't see anything. Oh, they got a really good nose, and they can hear really good, but they can't see anything. Well, you know what? If you're rifle hunting, that's fine and dandy. But when you're walking around in these canyons with these crazy swirling thermals doing whatever they do in this country, and you and a camera guy are trying to sneak up on them, the closest I got was 40 yards. I because of the reputation that they're just such a dumb animal and so easy to kill, there's a part of me that feels humiliated. But seeing, squaring off with them, sharp string or sharp stick on a string, I don't think they're like this stupid, dumb, trash animal.
No.
I don't.
Well, and to the bow hunter, which I'm not. Mm-hmm. I mean, you explained a lot of that to me and how the thermals work in those canyon countries. And, the time that I've been around javelina and been up close to them, it's been in the flat country. Right. So when you start talking about the thermal lift and the swirls and the wind, now I have a little better picture of that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the flat country, you're just not going to have that type of wind. You can choose your direction and go into it. Right.
And with an animal that's primary sense is its smell. That I was wishing I was out in that flat desert.
Right.
Okay, I saw him. I know which way the wind's blowing. It's going to blow that way all day. I think I'll just get in front of them and head them off.
Right.
But it was a ton of fun. So you're glassing for all these deer, and all of a sudden you see these little gray and black objects rooting around. I don't know what they're doing underneath those trees. I mean, they're pawing and they're scraping, and is that feeding activity?
Yeah, they're rooting. Generally, they eat roots.
Okay.
That's one of their, or they'll eat cactus pads or whatever.
Yeah, saw some of that.
But when we're glassing for javelina, so you're focused on it. You were focused on deer and just happen to see javelina.
Right.
When we focus on javelina, we're looking across the landscape. A lot of things start looking like javelinas.
Well,
and so we call them J-Los. Javelina-like objects.
There's a lot of those out in that
and so,
spot.
Yeah, so you're like, oh, I got a J-Lo. No, that's not one.
Well,
but they are actually very tasty.
And this is coming from Jonathan, who won the inaugural Yuma, Arizona Dove Cook-Off, who enters squirrel cook-offs. You travel the country doing squirrel
Going to
cook-offs.
Arkansas, yeah, every year.
And so if you say it's edible, I'm going with you.
Here's the problem. There's people who love them and hate them, and it's about a 50-50 line. And I think what happens with the people who hate them, it can be pretty warm in this javelina season,
right?
January, February. And what I think happens a lot of times is people don't treat that with enough respect.
Yeah.
It feels cool. It's still pretty warm.
So if you got a ton of hide on you.
Well, they'll shoot a javelina, and they're like, okay, cool. And then they'll throw it on their pack, and they'll drag it out, and they'll throw it in the bed of the truck, and they got to go drive back to camp. And then they're taking photos of it and, whatever. And so it sits in its own skin far too long. This isn't Minnesota where it's cold.
Right.
Like, you need to get that hide off and get it field dressed immediately.
Yeah.
And then when they're field dressed, and I think the other problem is they have a very strong scent gland.
Right.
Which when you're close to them, I mean, you can tell. And I think people take too many liberties about, putting their hands on the outside of the hide where that oil is at to spread their scent.
Right.
And then moving in when they're skinning it out to touching the meat with it then.
Oh, okay. So they get that oil on the meat.
Yeah, and so that can cause a problem because the smell. I mean, you eat partially with your nose,
right? Yep.
And so that's part of it. And then the third aspect is to think that you take a javelina and throw it on a hot grill and cook it real fast.
No,
that's it's going to taste like the bottom of your shoe.
Okay.
I mean, you start doing that. They really are a nice low and slow. They work well like pork on that low and slow kind of time frame, and make a lot of. Most guys just take it. They're like, let's just grind it all, turn it into sausage.
Right.
I usually hear chorizo.
Yeah.
They drown it in spices and cook it into submission.
It becomes a spice delivery platform.
Sure, that's pretty much all it is. But no, there's a lot of great uses for it. But yeah, the low and slow techniques really work well for it. So.
I'm next year. I think it's going to require 2 weeks, not a week. I will mix in some Mearns hunting if you're willing to bring your wonderful dog.
Absolutely.
I'm going waterfowl hunting with Jonathan.
You need to.
I have never shot I've never shot a Mexican duck. You showed me pictures of all kinds of other crazy things. I thought you'd been hunting at the zoo or something. It looked like some of them had more colors than a parakeet. Oh, someone told me you guys have thick-billed parakeets here occasionally.
Thick-billed parrots.
Parrots.
Yeah, they actually used to be a resident of southern Arizona down here in these Sky Islands.
Really?
We've tried some programs to try and reintroduce them again. Haven't been incredibly successful with it. But the one thing that I'll tell you is when you move from the Sky Islands to the Mogollon Rim,
right, which means
is between,
you're moving north.
You're moving north of Phoenix between
once you get
Phoenix
to the rim.
and Flagstaff, that huge Colorado Plateau face.
Yeah.
When you find Apache pine or Chihuahuan pines in the middle of this ponderosa pine forest.
Yeah.
Because that's all, it's the largest, most contiguous ponderosa pine forest in the world.
Right.
But occasionally there'll be a Chihuahuan pine or an Apache pine in the middle of all this. And you're like, where did that come from? The parrots dropped it. The parrots they'd eaten the seeds out of the cones and deposited it because that was their migration path. They would leave the Sky Islands of the south and migrate to the Mogollon Rim.
Huh. Wow. Well, I didn't plan on seeing one because I didn't even know they existed here until somebody told me. Someone was trying to remember who told me that. But anyhow, and then you guys have these other little ringtail looking things here. I've been looking for one. I never saw one. Are they Coati
Mundays.
Coati Mundays.
Coati Mundays.
So, I had to go online to see what they looked like even.
Darwin's grab bag.
What do they do? They look like part raccoon, part monkey, part squirrel, part. What's the deal there? Are there a lot of them here? I didn't see
actually, one. Yeah. So the interesting thing is, big groups of them are typically the females, the subadult males, and the offspring.
Yeah.
And they'll get in actually very large groups. I mean, we've seen, and they're called troops when they're all together.
Yeah.
Like it's a troop. And we've seen them as large as 200 to 300 moving across the landscape. And that's pretty unusual to get that large, but they have gotten to that size before. Usually the adult males are solitary.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, they're another species that, we share with Mexico that exists here, and actually their range has been spreading north. We have them up as far as the Mogollon Rim now. They are that far up north. Usually hang out riparian canyons, things like that. They root around, grub around, and stuff, and they climb trees. And when they walk through the grass, they have their tails up, and it's curled over, so it looks like a prehensile monkey tail.
Yeah.
And so I get a lot of phone calls about guys going, "I saw these monkeys on the border," and I'm like, going, "No, it's okay." And then they'll show up on trail cams, and guys want to know what the heck is on their trail cam. They're like, "This weird critter is out there," and they're like, "What is this?"
Well, I was just wanting to see one. I didn't. Is there a season on them?
Yes.
Okay. Are they
September
edible?
through March?
Are they edible?
They are. You can eat them.
If Jonathan gives that, well, if you want to kind of look.
Well, it's pretty much the reason why most folks will take a Coati Mundi is for taxidermy purposes.
Yeah.
They generally get one because you're allowed one per year.
Right.
Just like deer in that confined season. And most often, I think the frustrating part that I hear from taxidermists and all that stuff as well is it's usually a deer hunter.
Oh, and it puts a big
and
hole
it's
in.
the rifle, right? And they're shooting like a 30-06, and this is a really thin-skinned animal. And so when that 30-06 hits them, man, it opens them up. You know, I mean, this is something you probably want to shoot with some smaller caliber, one of the 22 calibers, center fire or rim fire.
Yeah.
To do it justice, to not have the taxidermist repairing everything. So
yeah. Huh. Well, I think it's going to require 2 weeks next year. And I am going to spot and stock and get an arrow in a Coues whitetail.
You were close.
I was close. We had some other stocks. We had a lot of stocks. Every day I had one or two stocks. And some of them just I didn't get that close. I'd get 90 yards or 100 yards. What it did show me is that these guys who've told me, oh, you better have a rifle that can shoot 600 yards or don't even bother going Coues deer hunting, I say horse hockey. I don't buy that. I mean, I can see where maybe that's what someone wants to do because at least in the mountains I was hunting them, there's some canyons that would be long shots if you wanted to shoot across from them. But I wouldn't have anyone be discouraged because they only have a 308 or a 30-06 or a 257 Roberts or whatever.
Well, and of course, you're seeing them at the kind of the beginning stages of the rut as well.
Right.
And that's when animals generally tend to get a lot more vulnerable. Mm-hmm. They make a lot of stupid decisions.
Yeah.
Particularly Coues whitetail, who earlier in the season, they've earned the name the Gray Ghost.
Yeah.
For a reason.
No, I can see that.
It's that earlier rifle seasons and stuff, the big boys really know how to hide.
Yeah.
You'll see a lot of the spikes and forks and stuff and that kind of stuff, but the real big boys, the ones over 100 inches, 110, 120, even the 130 inchers.
Yeah.
Man, it's, they know how to hide. Yeah. And get away from you and everything. But then when the rut starts coming on, we're chasing girls. Like, I could care less what's going on,
Yeah,
they expose themselves a little more.
Again, schedule-wise, I'm coming later next time. Because you're right, Jonathan. There was a little bit of rutting activity going on. You'd see the occasional young buck that was acting a fool. And I just think that it would be, when you're going to spot and stalk, if you forsake sitting at a water hole, you need all advantage you can get. And I would agree that a peak rut, my chance. I'm clumsy and I'm not a very good shot anyhow. I need everything I can get. My hearing has gone to hell. I'm your typical middle American 52-year-old guy who's
been hunting their whole life and blowing out their left eardrum.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine that. We're driving down the road and one guy says something, every time it's like, huh? Yeah. You heard the last two words.
Yeah, we got to turn to look at everybody anymore. But that's just part of who we are now. So
yeah. Well, I just want to make sure that the audience, and I think they get it, and they're going to get it from the YouTube videos we're producing on this hunt, and from the TV episode we're going to get out of this hunt, that Arizona has opportunity galore. Arizona, I mean, from when we came down dove hunting to quail hunting to waterfowl hunting to small big game. Is javelina considered big game?
Considered a big game. Yep.
Javelina, whitetails, mule deer, antelope, elk, desert sheep,
bear, mountain lion,
turkey, bighorn sheep, turkey. Oh, what, you guys have?
Oh, Gould's turkey.
Gould's turkey. Yeah, we hadn't talked about that down here.
Yeah. They're endemic. I mean, they're to this where we're at down here in the southern border. This is where the Goulds are, right?
Yep. This is and of course Arizona and New Mexico have Gould's turkey.
Yeah.
New Mexico has far fewer tags. They're not even. I don't even think to half a dozen yet.
Yeah.
So the best chance of shooting a Gould's turkey in the United States is here with Arizona. So
yeah. And you guys have a spring and fall regular turkey season?
Or regular turkey per Merriam's.
Gould's is only in spring.
Spring.
Mm-hmm.
And the populations are doing really well with the introductions that were done. I don't remember when they were put in. Jonathan, do you?
Oh, it was a long time ago.
It was in. I can tell you, 'cause I was on 15. One of the first recoveries of collars that didn't go well. It was had to be around 93, 95, somewhere in that.
Yep.
And that. But since then, I mean, we've had there's a lot of birds on the landscape now, and it's in southern Arizona, especially around that, that Fort Huachuca area, in that oak woodland, the same stuff that we're hunting Mearn's quail, and the same stuff we're hunting these Coues whitetail down here. So
I wonder if anyone's ever done a tally of which state has the most species you can hunt.
I don't know.
You guys might.
We got to be up there pretty close.
Yeah, I mean we definitely manage. more species than any other inland state in the country. So we don't even have a coast, and we've got more species.
Yeah.
But I will throw the gauntlet down right here on any other state out there.
If you got more
because I
species,
have
let me
more
know.
small game species. We are the small game states because everyone remembers Arizona for the elk, the deer, everything. That's the image that's out there. They don't realize we are the small game state.
Right.
Absolutely, hands down, the best. I've got 4 squirrel species.
Right.
I've got 5 quail species, 4 of them that you can hunt. The only endangered quail species in North America.
It's a mask problem.
I've got, you can get the Grand Slam of skunks in Arizona. We got western spotteds, hog stripes, and hoodeds. We've got more cool stuff here than most people just don't even realize.
Yeah.
Let me give you one interesting statistic that we at our one of our people there at Game and Fish put out. We have 31% of license holders that were surveyed exclusively hunt small game in Arizona. 31% exclusively. 20% exclusively hunt big game.
So
those are odd numbers, right? So we have 49% that are doing both, if I did my math right.
Right.
Right. So I mean, small game is a big part of what we do, and I don't know, and that just goes to show that's because of the opportunity that's here,
Right.
and the variety of small game that's out there. Anyway, it's just interesting to me. I've always thought, this is a big game hunting state.
Right. Yeah.
And it is.
Right.
But I just didn't equate the number of people that exclusively hunt small game, it shocked me.
Yeah.
It really did.
Well,
but it makes sense, but it did shock me.
Jonathan, you would have known what kind of little what cottontail rabbit this was, but when I was doing a deer stock, there was a cottontail rabbit about maybe, I don't know, maybe he was 12 inches long.
Probably a desert cottontail.
He looked really good eating, but I was in the middle of a stock on a bedded Coues deer, so he got away.
Yeah. That's another thing. We're the only state in the United States with the trophy jackrabbit of North America.
Right.
The largest lagomorph in North America. Right out here.
Right.
And I'm telling you what, average 9 pounds. Average.
Really?
I shoot jackrabbits bigger than Coues deer. I think our heaviest to date that we know of, the early science papers say that they had one that was 13.3. I know the
jackrabbit.
13 pounds, 3 ounces. The biggest we have so far today is 12 pounds, 6 or 8 ounces that we verified in our hand. And so I've got one mounted that used to sit over my desk there at the office, and it was my best today. I think it was like 11.2 or something, 11.4. Just these monster rabbits. And you know what's even better? They taste awesome.
Yeah, you said that when we did the podcast a few months ago. You said you loved them, and a couple of people emailed me and said, well, if you got some guy who thinks jackrabbits are edible, he's not an expert on anything.
Because I told you that Hank Shaw and I, that's how we met, was our love affair with jackrabbits. We both shared a commonality here because jackrabbit is the one species that even hunters, the most hardcore hunters out there, will turn their nose up and go, "What?
Yeah,
you eat that?"
I'm in that category
because you've heard the stories, you've heard all the bad.
Yeah,
and really, how many jackrabbits have you eaten?
One. I tried it.
Sure.
A Great Basin type jackrabbit in Nevada.
Yeah, probably blacktail.
I'll never eat another one, but it might have been how I cooked it.
It could have been how you cooked it, or even how you cut it up.
Yeah.
They have a lot of silver skin on them,
right?
And that's where the toughness and the poor taste comes from. It takes a lot of knife. There's 7 muscle groups in each hindquarter. It takes a lot of knife work to get it off.
Right.
Antelope jackrabbits. Oh my gosh! I fed our entire state legislature jackrabbit last year during our legislative day activities. Fed them jackrabbit. And none of our legislatures have died. You'll notice that was not in the paper. There was no outbreak of foodborne illness. And they were really surprised. I mean, they're really surprised. People, I'll make you a believer with jackrabbit.
Yeah.
That's one thing, because it's a incredible. Steve Rinella will tell you his favorite meal of all the wild game if he could eat for the rest of his life, it would be jackrabbit if Hank Shaw cooked it.
Really? Well, Hank and I are trying to schedule another podcast. I'm going to bring it up with him because in those listening, you probably know who Hank Shaw is. He's like as cool of a dude as you'll ever meet, but he can cook anything and make it really, really good. And I'm going to give a shameless plug for his current book that's out there right now. It goes with his old book, Duck, Duck, Goose, Buck, Buck, Moose. It's like great stuff.
Sure.
So maybe next time I get Hank on the podcast, I'll try to find a way to get you on the podcast, and we'll spend 2 hours talking about the intricacies of preparing jackrabbits and other disrespected small game.
That's perfect. Well, and another shameless plug for your Arizona listeners.
Yeah.
Arizona, Hank is on his Buck, Buck, Moose tour.
Is he here?
He will be coming Monday night, February 6th, from 6:30 to 9:30 at the Ben Avery facility.
Out on north end of the valley.
North end of Phoenix, yeah. Arizona, he's allowing me to abuse our friendship a little bit and having us host him. We've got it. It's open to the public. Pre-admission, there's nothing being charged. We're going to do kind of some wild game samplings there. Hank's going to do a demo, probably do a little bit of cooking too, and then we'll have a meet and greet, book signing, everything going on. So
you know what I ought to do next year? See if I can get Hank to come down here for a few days. We'll go scrape up roadkill. I'll shoot one of those Coati Mundi things. We'll the javelina. We'll have everything. And if Hank can't make it edible, I put up the white flag.
That would be fun. That would be really fun.
That would be like so cool. I wonder if I could talk him into it.
Worth a try. Between you and Jonathan, you ought to be able to do that, I would think.
Yeah, and all the waterfowl, because he's like, if anyone who says that waterfowl is not good, that widgeon we ate last night, Wade, that was excellent.
It was.
And so Hank can make waterfowl. It can make you crave waterfowl.
Oh yeah,
if you do follow what Hank says. Anyhow, Hank, you don't owe me anything for that other than an appearance on the next podcast or a podcast yet to be delivered. So, that'd be a cool idea. I mean, then you'd have all the locavores down here scouring your landscape with their Buck, Buck, Moose, Duck, Duck, Goose books.
Don't say anything wrong with that.
Pitched on the side of the road, eating off their tailgate, grilling and chilling and...
Absolutely.
Well, that'd be all right. Oh, guys, it's late. I can't believe I held you guys this long. Have we solved all the world's problems yet?
I don't know. I'm a little tired after a full day of running around chasing birds.
I think you've been...
And the dog.
You've been chasing birds for quite a few days.
It's been a few days, absolutely.
Yeah, I've been climbing mountains. These at least the mountains I was hunting, it's not like Montana type hunting where you look up there and, okay, it's a 3,000 foot elevation gain or 2,000 foot, and you just kind of cinch your pack on and you accept it. This is deceiving.
It is deceiving.
It doesn't look that far across there, and it doesn't look that deep down in the bottom or that deep or that big of a climb back up out of there, but it is.
And they kind of have the rounded tops. It just so the depths are deceiving, right?
Yeah, and everything there. I'm looking at my hands right now, and my legs are just full of scabs from whatever thing I walked by. Something jabbing me through my pants. You cannot stalk in this country without making tremendous amounts of noise. It's not fair.
You did a great job on this trip. I mean, this last trip. I mean, I couldn't believe that you would have got that close to that. And it was pretty amazing to watch that happen. Even if you weren't, I mean, it was neat to watch that happen.
Well, that's kind of how it... I guess that's a consolation. I'll take that.
Well,
but I got to go back to Montana and let my skin grow back to normal so it doesn't look like I've got some sort of dermatitis here. But all right, guys, I guess to summarize, don't miss the Arizona deadline on February 14th. GoHunt.com/insider. You're going to have the best Arizona odds and analysis you can get. Use the promo code Randy and get a $50 gift certificate. Go out to our YouTube channel right now. We just yesterday posted a video called Hunting Arizona with Randy Newberg and Friends. And it'll give you just a little bit of a teaser here about how much fun we had this week. And if you don't, even if you do draw an elk or antelope tag, get your calendar out. And in January of 2018, block out a week to come to southern Arizona and do what I just did. Archery hunt for deer, bring your shotgun, and expect that, one, you're not going to need your mucklucks, you're not going to need your hand warmers, and you're just going to have a ton of fun. So, what else are we missing, guys?
I think you wrapped it all up. I think we're...
Really?
No.
Jonathan, you got to go on a long drive after this, and what time is it? It's like midnight or something.
No, it's 30 miles. It's not a big deal.
Okay. Well, I just appreciate you guys chiming in with me. I appreciate you guys dangling the carrots out there in front of me to keep me thinking about other ideas, other opportunities, and holding my feet to the fire of not just letting me say, yeah, someday I'll do that. Because they call me next year Newberg. Yeah, I'll do that next year. I'll do that next year. And this is, and I told you this, Wade, as much as there might be times where I looked frustrated, I was having a blast. This has been one of the funnest weeks we've had. And the two camera guys both said the same thing. You know what? This is just a wonderful time. The weather was great. The scenery is different than anywhere else, and it's easy on the eye, and there are critters of all sorts in a lot of places. So
I'll tell you some of those views and stuff that are going to be captured on this segment.
Yeah.
Those are worth watching the segment for. Just the views, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Going to be amazing footage. So,
well, I know we appreciate you coming out and having us on the podcast and everything. So
yeah, well, I hope we haven't done or said anything that gets you guys in trouble back at headquarters.
Oh, no.
No?
No.
All right. Wade's like, well, maybe. Jonathan's like, nah. Well, folks, I really appreciate you listening. I hope you have a feel of how much fun Arizona can be, not just for the big game, but everything else. But certainly don't overlook the big game. And when you get that license, make the most of it. Come down and do these other things because there's just so much opportunity. And also, please follow us out on YouTube. The YouTube channel is Randy Newberg Hunter. Please follow us on Instagram. The Instagram, I guess, name or whatever handle you want to call it is Randy Newberg Hunter. And if you want to really keep up to date on what we're doing, Facebook is a really good place for that, Randy Newberg Hunter. And then our Hunt Talk forum gets really busy this time of year. The Hunt Talk forum is like the place where all the junkies and nuts who are planning their own application strategies like Arizona, planning their own hunts, doing all that stuff. We have a whole section of the forum about tags, drawings, and applications. Go out to Hunt Talk, sign up, participate there, and you'll get a lot of good information. And thanks for listening to this podcast. We really appreciate it. The podcast is just, can you believe how many thousand, I don't know if I shared the numbers with you, but tens of thousands of people will download this podcast in the first few days that it's out there. I cannot believe that many people want to listen to Randy Newberg sit around and tell BS stories with a bunch of buddies. I don't know if that's a commentary to how bored America is, or as our buddy Jerry Pritchard says, Newberg, The mere fact that anyone listens to you shows you how far a line of BS can get you in America. Anyhow, folks, thanks for listening. We appreciate it. And we have some great guests coming up for the next podcast. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but when you hear that podcast, you're going to enjoy it very much. Thanks for listening 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 very much.